The words change and the meanings change, and you cannot do a thing about it. It's literally crowdsourced. And the crowd changed the meaning of the word woke. It was originally something good, being alert to injustice, and it still has that meaning, but I'm sorry, it became the watchword for every kind of excessive woke bullshit thing, like, you know, let's have penises in the women's swimming pool.
Bill Maher, the veteran political satirist and host of HBO's Real Time with Bill Maher, has long been a provocative voice in American media. Known for his sharp wit and unfiltered commentary, Maher has consistently challenged the status quo, often walking the fine line between humor and controversy. In recent years, his critiques have increasingly focused on the extremes of political discourse, particularly the rise of what he perceives as excessive political correctness and the stifling of open dialogue. Mahar's journey in political and rejection of science.
Well, much more centrism, much more get rid of the woke baggage, you know. Old school liberal is what I usually describe myself as. But that's very often the opposite of woke. Woke would like people to believe that they're some sort of an extension of liberalism, but they're not. They're usually something that's quite opposite. Liberalism was, we should have a colorblind society and not see race at all. That's not what the woke believe.
Yeah, I would say it's...
They're the opposite.
Quite.
Let's put race at the front of everything.
Yep, absolutely. Oppressor and oppressed, sacred, make a sacred the oppressed. But I say it's kind of the difference between liberalism and progressivism. I don't know if you would identify ever as a progressive.
Well, you know, now we're talking about words that have, when everyone hears these words, they, in their minds, have their own definition. That's the problem.
That's the real problem at the core of it all. This isn't just stirring debate across dinner tables or trending on social media. It's actually causing visible cracks within the liberal camp itself. Imagine that for a moment. Even the most unwavering liberal voices who once marched in unison on issues of progress and social justice are now breaking formation. The ideological shift has become so radical, so fast, that it's making traditional Democrats feel alienated, disillusioned, and unsure of where they even stand anymore. It's a civil war within the party, not fought with bullets, but with buzzwords, cultural landmines, and divisive relevance. Of priorities. Why are educators steering the conversation into controversial territory while students lag behind in literacy and math? This isn't some fringe concern. It resonates deeply with parents who feel disempowered, bypassed, and even disrespected by school systems that seem more interested in social engineering than teaching. The fundamental question looms: who decides what's best for a child? The state or the parent? And when schools begin to silence or sideline parental input in favor of ideological trends, the fallout is predictable: outrage, protest, and political backlash. Maher views this not only as a breakdown in trust, but as a deliberate overstep of boundaries. These are formative years, and injecting radical social theories into early education isn't brave, it's irresponsible. Then there's the broader cultural fracture that emerges from this, an atmosphere so charged with moral righteousness that it leaves no room for dissent. Maher doesn't mince words when addressing how the far left's approach to gender, race, and power has created a deeply polarized public discourse. The label progressive has become so weaponized that it now excludes the very liberals who once carried the torch for change. Is this really evolution, Maher asks, or is it just ideological tyranny disguised as enlightenment? Take, for example, the issue of gender identity in sports. Suffering. In the past century, critics, including Maher, argued that the modern progressive movement's obsession with power dynamics, oppression hierarchies, and wealth redistribution carries eerie similarities to communist theory. From eat the rich slogans to calls for dismantling capitalism altogether, it's not hard to see where the concern comes from. This isn't just theoretical. Think about the riots under the banners of justice, BLM protests that turned violent, Antifa uprisings, entire neighborhoods reduced to rubble under the justification of rage. While many participants were genuinely outraged by injustice, the movement was often hijacked by radicals pushing for total upheaval rather than real reform. The energy that should have been channeled into policy change was instead funneled into destruction, and the worst part? The financial and ideological trail behind many of these uprisings hints at something far more organized and potentially insidious. So where does that leave us? According to Maher, we're standing at a fork in the road. One path leads to a society so
And she's 28, and she's talking about, basically how she is indoctrinating kids to be, at least consider homosexuality. Come on, Johnny, you're 6 years old. It's about time you considered whether you're homosexual. Well, it's really not. We were all homosexual at 6, by the way, because, I didn't like girls till I was
to authoritarian regimes, suppression of individual freedoms, and, in some cases, the deaths of millions, there remains a surprising number of people who view it as an unexplored or misunderstood utopia. Maher argues that this mindset not only ignores the hard-earned lessons of history, but also fails to grasp the depth of human suffering caused by such systems. He finds it alarming that in the face of abundant historical evidence, there's a willingness to overlook or outright deny the failures of communism in countries like the Soviet Union, Maoist China, North Korea, and more. These regimes promised equality but delivered brutality, stripping individuals of personal rights and stifling innovation, ambition, and liberty. Maher believes that while capitalism is far from perfect, its ability to generate prosperity, encourage creativity, and empower individual choice far outweighs the forced collectivism and government overreach seen in communist systems. The uncomfortable truth, he says, is that some individuals, either out of frustration with current economic disparities or due to ideological indoctrination, still believe communism deserves another chance. But to Maher, entertaining such ideas is not only naive, but also a reckless gamble with freedom and human progress. He stresses that societies must remember history not just as a cautionary tale, but as a blueprint for avoiding past mistakes. Repeating them, he warns, would not lead to a more just world, but one stripped of liberty, opportunity, and human dignity.
No, you hung out with boys and did boy things. Girls sucked. Girls were terrible. I had a button. I bought it at Valley Fair. It said, "I hate girls." I swear to God, they made a button.
Age, how old?
I feel like this was like 12 because it was that moment in adolescence when some of the boys are starting to defect because they're reaching puberty.
Traitors.
So traitors,
Bastards.
exactly,
Yeah.
traitors.
Never
You like
trusted them.
girls?
Yeah.
What?
Super gay.
Super gay. And so, yeah. I mean, so when you're young, I mean, you really, it's like prison. It's just a bunch of guys, and that's all you want to be around.
Well, I went to a women's rights march in Dublin, and there was an anti-women's rights march, or they would probably call it like a pro-trans march, but they had placards with Lenin's face on.
Oh, sure.
And so, you say that the teachers, but and I agree with you that it's teachers who are pro-communist, but I don't understand.
Well, not all of them.
Not all of them, of course. But there's many who are.
What I'm saying is many young
choose to communicate, lead, and live together.